A magnificent white castle stood engulfed in flames beneath an apocalyptic orange sky. Debris and embers drifted through the air as the castle's towers began to crumble. Hooded knights moved with deadly precision, eliminating the servants one by one. In the midst of the chaos, two swords clashed. A lone man fought desperately against one of the hooded knights. He blocked the attack, gritting his teeth against the overwhelming force. This was his story. It all began with the Ragnar clan, a grand ducal lineage that had safeguarded the empire's northernmost borders for over 1,000 years. Their strength stemmed from a unique constitution, said to be the inheritance of dragon's blood. Every member of the Ragnar bloodline was born with exceptional magic power, immense stamina, and unparalleled swordsmanship talent. Everyone except him. Kneeling on the ground, blood gushing from his wound, Theo Ragnar gasped for breath. He, the only Ragnar born without talent, now faced the cruel reality of his fate. A hooded man stepped forward, sneering. As he lowered his mask, he revealed himself as Rendon, the very man who had trained Theo in swordsmanship. With a smug expression, Rendon mocked Theo, calling his relentless morning training nothing more than a pitiful display. He scoffed, remarking that hard work alone could never make up for Theo's lack of ability. Laughing, Rendon taunted him further. Imbecile of Ragnar. A title, he claimed, befitting someone as hopeless as Theo. Theo's eyes burned with anger. He demanded to know why Rendon had betrayed him. Had he really gone so far as to become Theo's sword instructor, only to teach him worthless techniques and ultimately sell the Rose Palace? Without warning, Rendon's blade sliced cleanly through Theo's left hand. Sighing, Rendon dismissed any responsibility. He gripped Theo's head, forcing him to watch as the Rose Palace burned. The flames consumed everything. Another hooded man approached, dragging a woman by her hair. It was Theo's mother, lifeless, her body limp. Theo stared, hollow inside. Rendon's voice dripped with mockery. "This is all your fault." Theo's chest tightened as Rendon's words sank in. "Because you are weak." Blind with rage, Theo grasped his sword and lunged at Rendon. But before his strike could land, another blade pierced his chest. His vision blurred, the agony unbearable. As darkness closed in, regret filled his mind. He had failed. He couldn't protect anyone. He couldn't accomplish anything. If only he had been born with talent, things would have been different. A single tear slipped from his eye as the flames devoured the world around him. Then light. A message appeared before him. "You have died." Theo's trait activated. His regression had begun. The first thing Theo saw was Rendon, standing in the middle of the training ground, teaching him swordsmanship. Confusion overwhelmed him. Hadn't he just died? Was this some kind of flashback? He couldn't believe that, of all things, the first face he saw was Rendon's smug expression. Then a message popped up before him. "Quest, punch Rendon in the face." Theo blinked. What? Still disoriented by the strange system, he wondered if this was some kind of divine joke. Perhaps a final gift from the gods. One last chance to vent his frustration before he truly passed on. His gaze locked onto Rendon. Without hesitation, he dropped his wooden sword, clenched his fist, and delivered a solid punch straight to Rendon's face. Rendon, expression frozen in utter disbelief. Theo, his fist still planted in Rendon's face, couldn't help but smirk. Why did this dream feel so real? Rendon's shock faded into fury. Without warning, he struck Theo, sending him flying. Theo hit the ground hard, clutching his stomach. Pain shot through him. Why did it hurt? Wasn't this just a dream? Rendon sighed, shaking his head. He admitted he understood Theo's frustration, especially with the awakening ceremony approaching. And yet, despite all his efforts, Theo still showed no progress in training. Theo's breath hitched. The awakening ceremony? His mind reeled. That had happened when he was 17. Rendon, still oblivious to Theo's internal turmoil, scoffed. A Ragnar should wield a sword, not his fists. Turning away, he left Theo to process his thoughts. Others in the training grounds erupted in laughter, ridiculing Theo. The imbecile of Ragnar. Talentless fool. He's a disgrace, even for an illegitimate child. Theo gritted his teeth. Then realization dawned. The pain. The ground beneath him. The laughter ringing in his ears. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a flashback. This was real. He had returned to the past. A message flashed before him. Quest complete. As a reward, the system activated his Ragnar's talent. Another message followed. Activate? Theo didn't hesitate. Yes. At his command, brilliant light erupted from his chest, swirling like a newborn star. Another notification appeared. Theo's stats will now increase at a tremendous speed. A final message surfaced. This time, things would be different. At the Rose Palace, Rendon spoke with Theo's mother about Theo's lack of talent. With a confident smile, he promoted himself as the true teacher who would guide Theo to the best of his ability. Theo's mother, holding a bag, smiled in relief at his words, grateful to hear such reassurance from Rendon. Handing the bag to him, she remained hopeful that one day, Theo would be recognized. As Rendon walked down the corridor, he glanced at the bag in his hands. His smile twisted. He had no intention of training Theo. He was simply taking advantage of Theo's mother, swindling her out of money. Speaking to himself, Rendon sneered, muttering that the blood of a concubine like Theo's mother would never amount to anything. He pried open the bag, revealing it was full of gold coins, payment for tutoring Theo. But that wasn't the only profit he was making. Someone else was paying him to deliberately hinder Theo's growth. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Someone was running toward him. Theo. He was in such a hurry that he didn't even notice Rendon. At the end of the corridor, Theo's mother was speaking with one of the servants. When she heard her name being called, she turned, only to find Theo staring at her as if he had seen a ghost. Without hesitation, Theo ran to her and wrapped his arms around her in a tight embrace. Startled, she asked if something was wrong. Theo's breath hitched, and tears spilled down his cheeks. He had really returned, 10 years into the past. The memories of his past life still burned in his mind, the image of his mother's lifeless body vivid as ever. But here she was alive, warm in his arms. Looking up at her, he smiled through his tears. She had no idea what was going on. But he did, and he made a vow to himself. This time, he would change the future. Now that he had the system's gift, he could become stronger. Strong enough to stand his ground in that damned war for the throne. But first, he would take revenge on Rendon. Then a message popped up. Train your body to the limit. Night fell over the training ground, and Theo was still running. His mind burned with thoughts of vengeance, but in his current state, he didn't stand a chance. He recalled his previous life. Back then, he had briefly joined the intelligence agency known as Black Word, only to be relegated to the information team due to his lack of skill. He never expected the knowledge he gained there would come in handy like this. He remembered something. A potion. The Bloody Sword Emperor's elixir. A substance that greatly enhanced the body. Its true worth had been revealed in a secret manual years later. And most importantly, the extreme training regimen he had once given up on, because of his lack of talent. But not anymore. Morning arrived, yet Theo was still running. His body screamed in protest, but now that he had confirmed the message window was real, he couldn't stop. Other trainees noticed. They murmured among themselves. Since when was Theo this fit? He didn't care. He continued training, now swinging a wooden sword. With every swing, his motivation soared. He could see his progress through the system. Days passed. He was still swinging that wooden sword. From afar, someone watched him. Evelyn Nereville, the manager of Training Ground 4. She had been observing Theo for days, watching as he trained relentlessly without rest. She frowned. Why did they call him the imbecile of Ragnar? Was Theo truly talentless? Meanwhile, Theo felt like he was on the verge of death. But he was only 3% away from completing the tutorial quest. He remembered what had happened the day before. When he tried to rest, his progress went down. His eyes had nearly popped out of his skull in shock. So now he kept going. 1% left. He gritted his teeth, summoning every last ounce of strength. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs felt like they would give out. Evelyn's sharp eyes noticed something strange. Theo was getting faster, and faster. Then, 100%. The system congratulated him. Theo's body finally gave in. Darkness swallowed his vision as he collapsed to the ground. Then, another message popped up. You have obtained Dragon Heart as a reward. Another message followed. Bonus reward. 10 years of past life magic power for speedrunning the quest. Lying on the cold ground, Theo barely processed the words. A final message appeared. Will you receive the rewards now? His hands trembled from exhaustion, but he forced them to move. He pressed yes. The moment his fingertip made contact, a surge of energy erupted from his body, shooting skyward in a dazzling explosion of light. Evelyn's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like this. What the hell was happening to Theo? Sometime later, Theo's eyes fluttered open. He was indoors. He sat up, groggy, scanning his surroundings. Then the door opened. Evelyn entered. Don't worry, she said, her voice calm. You're in the break room of Training Ground 4. Theo blinked. Why was she here? Evelyn introduced herself as the manager of Training Ground 4, then explained. You lost consciousness while training alone this morning. I brought you here to rest. She handed him a drink. Theo accepted it, still processing everything. Evelyn studied him for a moment. Then she asked, do you know that within the Ragnar clan, opening the Mana Hall before the awakening ceremony is forbidden? Theo stiffened. He nodded. I know. She watched him closely. Then you should also know what happens if you break that rule. Theo lowered his cup. Something was off. Why are you asking me this all of a sudden? He questioned. Evelyn's expression didn't change. Because, she said slowly, right before you lost consciousness, a mana wave occurred. One that aligns with the opening of a Mana Hall. Theo's heart skipped a beat. His face betrayed his shock. Evelyn's aura shifted. Her presence suddenly felt heavier. "Tell me, Theo," she asked, her voice now edged with suspicion. "Did you open your mana hall?" Caught off guard, Theo struggled to respond. What did she mean? Mana hall. Then suddenly, he remembered. Right before he collapsed, the system had sent him a message. Dragon heart obtained. Realization dawned on him. And then, he smiled. The dragon heart. A mana hall can be placed within the heart of a dragon, allowing for more efficient control of mana compared to when it is placed in the lower abdomen, as is done by ordinary humans. This is why every warrior, including members of the Ragnar clan, yearn for a dragon's heart, for it would grant them immense power. However, human beings are unable to overcome their natural limitations. Evelyn was a high-ranking swordsman who retired from active duty after sustaining an injury that cost her her left arm. Following her retirement, she took up a position as the manager of Training Ground 4. Prior to her injury, Evelyn had served as the commanding officer of the prestigious White Armored Dragon Cavalry. Her exceptional skills earned her the admiration of even the demon dragon within the regiment. She was widely respected not only for her abilities, but also for her unwavering principles. Evelyn valued honesty and courage above all else, placing little importance on status or power. If she were to discover the truth about Theo's dragon heart and its mana hall, she wouldn't hesitate to order his execution. However, Theo was confident that he wouldn't be caught by Evelyn. Theo asked her if she was prepared to face the consequences if her assumption that he had opened his mana hall was proven false. Evelyn stated that she understood the rules and their consequences. Theo's aura changes his face with sinister expression. Piercing pale eyes and slight smirk create an unsettling atmosphere. Theo then inquired if Evelyn knew that the punishment for humiliating a ducal heir was execution, which she already knew. Evelyn was surprised by Theo's sudden change in demeanor, but she was certain that what she witnessed was a mana wave. Evelyn raised her hand, and a light emanated from it. Holding firm to her belief that rules should be upheld for all, regardless of bloodline, she placed her hand over Theo's abdomen to investigate for the presence of mana energy. After a brief inspection, Evelyn was stunned to discover that Theo did not possess a mana hall, a revelation that left her reeling in disbelief. With an air of skepticism and mild disdain, Theo looked down at Evelyn and asked, "So, no mana hall?" Evelyn, humbled and repentant, knelt before Theo and admitted her error in humiliating him, offering her life as penance. Theo, knowledgeable about the unique properties of dragon hearts, understood that he could conceal his own mana hall at will, setting the stage for an opportune moment to turn the tables on Evelyn. Theo was aware that several years from now, the revelation that humans could possess dragon hearts would come to light. Evelyn would never have guessed that Theo possessed a dragon heart, rendering her suspicions moot. Theo tapped Evelyn on the shoulder, assuring her that no retribution was necessary. Evelyn was taken aback by this turn of events. Theo explained that he understood her actions were in service of the truth, a virtue he admired, even from one of lower status. Besides, Theo explained, the reason that opening a mana hall was restricted before the opening ceremony was due to the fear of mana overload. Evelyn's surprise and confusion were met with Theo's elation as he informed her that her concern over his possible mana overload as a Ragnar bastard was misplaced. Theo thanked Evelyn and left the room, leaving her alone and bewildered by the unexpected turn of events. Walking down the corridor, Theo muttered to himself, "I can become incredibly powerful in this life." A few days later, Theo was still undergoing swordsmanship training with Rendon, who continued to berate him during the sessions. While Theo was secretly pleased with his progress, he struggled to maintain his facade of weakness while enduring Rendon's harsh teaching style. Theo was aware that Rendon was intentionally teaching him incorrect sword techniques. This only deepened his belief that there was a mastermind behind Rendon's behavior. Theo was certain that this person was also responsible for his murder. With newfound resolve, he decided to uncover their identity. He came to a halt, struck by a realization. He now had the power to achieve his goal. Theo stopped in his tracks, turned to face Rendon, and shattered his wooden sword. His eyes glowed with an unearthly light as he demanded to know how Rendon, with his meager skills, had achieved the rank of mid-level swordsman. Theo continued his tirade, adding that Rendon would struggle against even the weakest of demonic beasts. Rendon's face contorts with fury, his teeth clenched and eyes burning with rage. His usual smugness is gone. Theo believed that Rendon had been assigned as his instructor to monitor him. He stepped right up to Rendon's face and insulted his sword skills, knowing that it would make Rendon angry. Rendon reacted exactly as Theo had expected, shouting his name in a fit of rage. Theo's plan was unfolding as he had hoped. He wanted Rendon to lose his composure and contact the mastermind behind the scheme. Over at the Camellia Palace, a young man bursts in, yelling Axian's name. He informs Axion that Theo will be dueling with Rendon next week. Axion, still holding his drink, throws it in the man's face, knocking him out. Axion, clearly angered, retorts, "So what? This is Axion Ragnar, one of the four hounds of the north, also known as Dark Tiger." Beside him stands Remington Narcio, another of the four hounds of the north, known as the Silver Lion. As the young man remains unconscious after getting hit with a glass, another figure enters the room. He's Ed Troyven, the Sky Dragon and one of the 9 dragons, as well as Axion's uncle. Remington bows in respect while Ed warns Axion not to underestimate Theo, explaining that anything is possible with a Ragnar. Axion replies nonchalantly, saying that Ed is overreacting, but Ed remains serious, insisting that the smallest possibility could lead to disaster. Ed approaches Axion and Remington as Axion expresses his confidence that Rendon will defeat Theo and do their dirty work for them. Fast forward to a week later, at Training Ground 4. The atmosphere is tense as trainees, Evelyn, and a mysterious figure in a white coat, sporting an eye patch and a single red eye wait. At the center of the training ground, Theo and Rendon stand facing each other, swords in hand, the snow swirling around them. Theo initially planned to simply get Rendon dismissed after Rendon humiliated him. But now the situation has spiraled out of control, with the stakes much higher than he had anticipated. Just when Theo thought things couldn't get any more complicated, he received a new quest: to defeat Rendon in a duel. Resolute and focused, Theo readied himself for the upcoming battle, determined to exact his revenge. 1 week prior to the duel, Theo faces Rendon, furious at the deception he has uncovered. Without hesitation, Theo fires Rendon and demands that he leave, but Rendon argues that his contract is still valid. Undeterred, Theo remains firm in his decision to dismiss Rendon. Rendon, consumed by rage, contemplates retribution. Once their paths diverge, Theo plans to investigate Rendon's background further. With his mission at risk of failure if he is fired, Rendon pleads his case to Theo, arguing that the dismissal violates established rules. Desperate, he even threatens to report Theo to the tribunal. Undeterred, Theo receives a new quest: to engage in a duel with Rendon and emerge victorious. Evelyn proposes to settle the dispute according to the Ragnar way, the rule of the strong. Rendon, eager for the chance to defeat Theo and maintain his position, agrees to the duel without hesitation. Evelyn proposes that the duel be held a week from now, but Theo's doubtful. He's not strong enough to beat Rendon yet, so why would Evelyn suggest this? After the discussion, Theo seeks Evelyn out and asks why she suggested the duel. Evelyn, sipping her coffee with a cool, nonchalant air, explains that she's just trying to help. Firing Rendon won't solve the problem, she says. Someone's backing him. The eyes-wide surprised asked Evelyn how did she know about it? Evelyn explained that she noticed that Rendon was teaching Theo some weird sword style, so she had someone secretly investigate Rendon. Theo went silent. He remembered that in his past life, Evelyn didn't catch this. Is it because of the Manor Hall incident? Evelyn put down his coffee and continued. Based on Evelyn's investigation, all of Rendon's traces lead back to Camellia Palace. Theo is shocked. Asked himself if this was because of the war for the throne. Now Theo knows who is behind his death and his mother. Theo thanks Evelyn for uncovering the conspiracy, but he remains doubtful of his ability to defeat Rendon. Evelyn, however, believes Theo is underestimating himself and offers to personally train him for a week, claiming that he can beat Rendon with her guidance. Her hatred for Rendon's shady teaching methods motivates her. Theo smiles, pleased with how things are turning out. It was worthwhile to have Evelyn in his debt. Yet, there's still something he wants to clarify. Theo asks her why she's helping him. In a nutshell, Evelyn's motivation for helping Theo has 2 reasons: the Manor Hall incident and an unknown individual who has an interest in him. Back to the current day. The audience is skeptical about the possibility of Theo, a novice swordsman, being capable of defeating a mid-rank swordsman like Rendon. Rendon, the mid-rank swordsman in question, offers Theo a chance to apologize, but Theo stands his ground, threatening to reduce Rendon to a one-armed swordsman if he doesn't accept his dismissal. Rendon grits his teeth, eager for the duel to start so he can teach Theo a lesson once and for all. So Rendon, being the teacher he is, tells Theo to make the first move. Theo rushes towards Rendon, who's waiting for his attack. Everyone watching thinks Rendon might have killed Theo, but surprise, surprise, Theo manages to block all of Rendon's attacks. Rendon's still clueless until Theo stops his powerful strike. This makes Rendon wonder what's going on with Theo, who's keeping a cool head and blocking every attack like it's no big deal. In the midst of the audience, a hooded figure intently observes Theo's battle with Rendon. The audience is divided, some unable to determine if Theo is on the defensive or displaying newfound skill. Meanwhile, Evelyn wears a knowing smile as she listens to the audience's murmurs. Rendon's frustration grows as he relentlessly attacks, but Theo remains unshaken, his expression focused and resolute. Rendon is bewildered by Theo's sudden transformation, questioning whether Theo had been feigning ignorance earlier, and if so, why? Theo then demands to know who's supporting Rendon, but Rendon angrily denies his allegations, pushing Theo away. Theo insists that Rendon has been deliberately giving him poor instructions, which Rendon refutes. Theo then drops a bombshell, the mention of Carmelia Palace. Rendon freezes, stunned by Theo's knowledge. Theo's deduction is confirmed by Rendon's reaction, revealing Carmelia Castle's hand in this plot. Remembering the pain of his own arm being severed, Theo demands to know if Rendon understands what that feels like. Rendon, caught off guard, watches in horror as Theo's blade cuts cleanly through his left arm, sending his hand flying. Rendon collapses to his knees in disbelief, clutching his stump as the audience, including the mysterious hooded figure, watch in stunned silence. Rendon's screams of agony reverberate through the training ground, as Theo's retribution begins to take shape. Theo, looking like a total badass, strides over to the helpless Rendon and tells him that all his mocking of Theo's weakness has finally caught up with him. Despite Rendon's pleading, Theo swiftly and decisively takes him out with a single swing of his sword. The crowd, including Remington, is stunned by this turn of events, as the message confirms Theo's victory. Evelyn has a satisfied smile on her face, and the mysterious figure is totally impressed by Theo's bold and decisive move. A message pops up, announcing that Theo has earned a bonus reward for going above and beyond in his mission. Theo, still wiping away Rendon's blood from his face, receives a message. Reward received. Alright, that's a wrap for today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.